Okay, so I've seen presentations where somebody who's not actually licensed as a CDS, he'll get in front of maybe a realtor and he'll say, okay, this is how you know you're in a meth home. You look for beakers and vials and tubes, etc. The reality is that doesn't happen. Meth heads are way too nervous about being caught, and they're not going to just leave that behind. I've only seen that happen once in the hundreds of homes that I have been in. And that was in a deep, dark corner of a basement where you wouldn't, that place felt haunted. It was bad. It was dark, and it was in the corner of that dark, nasty, haunted, gross basement. Other than that, I've never seen the beakers and vials that are typically a sign of a meth house. What is a little more common, yeah, you can have the tubes and bottles, but you can also be looking for things that are out of place. For example, ephedrine and Sudafed are typically used as part of the meth making process, especially if the guy is a small timer. So maybe if you see ephedrine in the kitchen, that's not really a big deal. Or maybe it's in the medicine cabinet, not necessarily a big deal. But if it's in an out-of-the-way place like the basement near the bathroom, that might be more of an indication. Rat poison, a gun being left out, or if you got Bunsen burners or just things that don't belong. Maybe you see kerosene actually inside the house. That's part of the process. Or if you see a large pile of matches, maybe in a bedroom, that's phosphorus that are also used sometimes in the process. Of course, needles. I've been in homes where you move the ceiling tiles and a bunch of needles fall out. I've been in homes where you remove the heat vents and a bunch of needles are in there. So, this sort of thing might be what you would be looking for as a precursors or signs that you might have a lab. There are materials that will test the home positive for meth, and these are very common ones. We have all taken Sudafed or ephedrine. That is a very common, the difference between ephedrine and meth are this much. I understand that all they have to do to turn ephedrine into meth is just strip off like an oxygen molecule or something similar to that, and then you've got meth. So the use of ephedrine and Sudafed are very common among meth heads. It's a very easy way to pass up a lot of other steps and go directly to the end result. That is one of the reasons why they made Sudafed and ephedrine and some other chemicals a lot more difficult to get to back when they passed the laws in 2004. In addition, chemicals like Ritalin are also chemically very similar to meth. Sometimes it's meth repackaged. So, for example, you could take a pill of Sudafed, which we have all taken, we've all popped in our mouth, and it improves the sinuses. You could take a pill, drop it on the counter, and then pull the pill away, and the little bits of dust from that pill, if sampled, will test the home positive for meth. And as a matter of fact, even though they have changed in the state law, they have changed the meth regulatory limit from 0.1 to 1.0. The Sudafed or the ephedrine standard is still 0.1. You could very easily sample a counter where maybe an ephedrine pill was just placed there, and you could legally show that property is contaminated with meth just by sampling that location. We've covered in this segment the materials that will test the home positive, and we talked about the precursors or signs that you might have a lab as you're going in. The reality is that you're going to want to pretty much stick with those 4 potential signs of a lab that we talked about in the earlier segment, just because those are far more common. I mean, you and I, we go into homes that are empty, or maybe they're not empty, but we're not going to see beakers. What we might see is the pet urine smell, the messiness, that sort of thing, like we talked about earlier. Okay, next segment, we're going to give you some background and just give you some idea of how other states are dealing with their meth laws, just so that you can understand where Utah is in the spectrum.